Hi, everybody. My name is Darrel. I'm an account manager, team lead with Moodle in the US. I have this session today. It's about a client of mine. It's a case study. Their name is DigiCert. I think it's a pretty interesting story. I presented it a couple of times, but yeah. So has anybody heard of a company called DigiCert? They're kind of a behind the scenes type company. They are a digital security products company. If you look up in an address bar and you go to like site security settings for the security certificate and such, they're like the trusted authority for this PKI infrastructure things that make security certificates work for websites. They're a global company used widely across the world. This thing is advancing faster than it should. So they had a problem when I started working with them. I've been their account manager for probably 4 years now. And initially I was working, I just realized I was way far from the mic, was I? When I started working with them, it was under a workplace implementation. I didn't know that they had other LMSs and other departments. I was working with a specific department that was utilizing workplace for their needs. So everything was going fine, working with them, it was all good. And then I started realizing that these other LMSs existed, other teammates were curious about what was going on with the workplace. So they started talking with me more about this problem that they had of the company utilizing multiple learning management systems across multiple departments. So at some point about 2 or 3 years ago, they decided to do a deep dive into this problem and see what was causing it, like what the effects were. So what we discovered is they had 9 implementations of different learning management systems of 3 different types. I'll describe that here in a little bit. The solution was to set up a project team to tackle this problem and see what they could do to resolve it, and then eventually I'll get into how they executed that. So this first problem is just too many LMSs. I don't know if there is really too many. I think there is more than one, could be too many. I've got other clients that use 2 or 3 for different purposes. Workplace, in their case, served a particular need because of its multi-tenancy feature. So for them, it's very useful and can serve as multiple LMSs. They're very keen on 4.5. They really like the idea of the tenant-specific URLs that you'd be able to use, and there's some other features that they're interested in. This was their inventory. So I don't know if you can see that. The table's kind of low on the screen. But the different departments, the people department, basically kind of the HR, there's their compliance, privacy and security and legal trade teams. They're kind of like the internal staff that deals with their products and security. Obviously, for a security firm, security and privacy of information is paramount for them. They also had their SDR teams that was using a Moodle implementation from Blingyell Learning. Their sales enablement teams were using what used to be called Captivate Prime. It's now called Captivate Train, I think, something like that. And then there's the field enablement teams. These are the folks that go out and work with the companies and work on site in places, and then the support and validation teams. The effect of this was when they started looking at the inventory that they had, there was a lot of inconsistency of data because users in some cases had accounts in 3 or 4 learning management systems that were either manually created or imported or whatever. It was kind of a mess. Reporting was very unreliable. And obviously there's a lot of unnecessary cost and lost opportunity maintaining, in some cases, what are effectively duplicate instances of a single platform that just weren't necessary. From a user experience, it was very confusing because as an employee, I might have to jump into Moodle Workplace one day, and then I'm in Moodle Core the next day, and then doing something else in Captivate Prime. And then I'm in the other Captivate Prime thing, which looks different than the first one. So the user experience was very inconsistent, and there was really no alignment with like their corporate brand. So that was just across the board. Data synchronization, it was almost non-existent. There was really no way to bring data from all these platforms into one place. And then a lot of just redundant effort. So their solution ended up being Moodle Workplace, when I'm going to describe how they arrived at that decision. So the first thing they decided to do was contact all the site administrators for these different learning management systems and just get the opinion of what they were using. What do you think about it? Is it meeting your current needs? Is it lacking anything? If you were to change, would it be difficult? Would it be really a big problem to leave that behind? The results of the survey were that Moodle Workplace is the only one that met the needs of the department that was using it. The other ones, their needs weren't fully met. Something was missing. The Moodle Workplace platform, they determined, could meet the needs of the other departments that weren't using it, so it filled that gap. And this is a key one too, is Moodle Workplace, because of the multi-tenancy, could service their internal and their external users in different ways. DigiCert has a staff of about 2,800 people, I think, worldwide, but they also have a network of partners and providers and things that they need to provide training and support for, that they don't want them to intermingle with the staff. And so multi-tenancy is a huge component for them. And except, I would say across the board, everybody said that it would not be a problem to leave Workplace, except for the Workplace team. They said, no, this is critical and we can't leave it behind. So basically everything was pointing at Workplace as their solution. So they decided to put a project team together. The first goal was to put together these key performance indicators for this new LMS, their KPIs. So I'm not going to read the list here, you can see what it says, but basically they came together and said this new LMS must meet these requirements. This is what we have to have. The team that was using Workplace was confident that it could meet all of these needs, but they needed to have buy-in from all of the other people on the project team. So that's what they started working on first. And then eventually, after time, meeting remotely and such, they decided that Moodle Workplace did meet all of these OKRs and the KPIs, sorry for all the acronyms. Overall, they just knew that this was going to be a way to make the entire organization more efficient, remove a lot of friction, and just make the training effort easier. So eventually they recommended just moving everything from the various LMSs over to Workplace. So their next step was now to get into a workshop mode, and this was an interesting shift for them, because up until this point, DigiCert as a company did not have a central enterprise level training and development focus. All of the departments kind of did what they needed for their purpose to fill their needs at that time, and there wasn't a centralized approach to any sort of training. This kind of forced them to do that, because all of these department heads came together and says, well, here's what we need for our department. Here's what our audience needs. And it forced a centralized focus from the enterprise to say, what does this system have to do to meet everybody's needs? So they got together, leadership from all over the world met in Lehi, Utah, where they're based, for a 3-day workshop. I think it was 3 12-hour days, very intensive. The first day was just deciding how the infrastructure was going to be put together. How do we organize our tenants, the org structure, all these workplace tools? How do we just get all this prepped to meet the needs of all of these departments? So that was the first day. The second day, they started talking about content, and this was a big one. They started realizing that a lot of these instructors and LMS admins were creating very similar things because they had similar requirements, just maybe a shift in focus for their departments. So there was a lot of redundancy that they were finding as they brought this stuff together to bring it into the single workplace instance. They were looking at how to share different assets, how to deal with user registration and enrollments. We're still dealing with some of that. Getting into certifications, not only for staffing and their partners, but also for cross-training and upskilling. There's a lot of stuff they do for people that are interested in different jobs to take a particular training that might be available because they want to learn about a different product channel, something like that. And then on the last day was all about planning, like how do we get going? How do we communicate this to the organization? How do we get marketing and branding and content involved? And how do we migrate everything? What does the schedule look like? So this to me is the most intriguing thing. Up till now, it's all been the mechanics, right? They're talking about money and cost and effort and how do we make things better. What's interesting to me is that the result of this effort was what they call now DigiCert University, the DCU. It's a company-wide effort, and this group of people now, this team of people that manage the DCU never worked with each other before. They work in the same company, but they might be geographically distant or in a different department. They just never collaborated before. They never had to, they never needed to. Now they've all come together and they meet monthly. So the DCU team meets monthly. And just recently they asked me to start joining those calls, which is an account manager is like gold standard for them to trust me to come in and be part of that internal conversation. So we meet monthly and talk about what's going on, what works, what doesn't, what's the plan for the upcoming month, all that sort of thing. It's typically an hour meeting. And it's become a very dynamic thing for them in how they manage their DCU. They're starting to brainstorm other ideas, not just for learning, but how can Moodle Workplace be like the central hub for all information for the company? From their perspective, if you're in a meeting or in a call or you're looking up a document or something like that, ultimately the purpose is you're trying to learn a thing that you didn't know before. You're trying to reference something that you don't know off the top of your head. And so for them, logically, the training tool, DigiCert University, is the place to go for that. So they want Moodle Workplace not just be the training opportunity platform, but the knowledge base, the document center, the place to go for meetings, anything like that where people are coming together to trade and share and learn. They want that to happen in that single platform. They want to drop like OneDrive. They want to drop Google Drive. They don't want to use any other platform. They want everything to be in Workplace as much as possible. So this collaborative thing that it's created to me has been one of the most intriguing results of this effort. So this is how they executed everything. You can see the timeline here is pretty extensive. They started talking about this in mid 2022. So they gathered the needs, identified the gaps, worked on everything, put the plan together in September, worked on the build at the end of 22, finally launched their test site at the end of 22 in December, and then the full launch of the DigiCert University started in January of 23. And in many ways, that's where some of the big work started, because once they implemented, now all of a sudden it was starting to find things that they didn't know about before. So some of the impacts here, they're not willing to tell me this number because as a sales guy, they're kind of telling me how much I'm leaving on the table, but they said it's well in excess of 6 figures a year, which is striking to me that they were able to save that much money by just dropping other things that they didn't need. There's some big benefits here about the consistent user experience, dropping all the content gaps and the redundancies. Those have all been fixed. HR is over the moon about reporting. Just the data that they have access to is head and shoulders above what it was before. We're still dealing with some data inconsistencies. There's a lot of poor data that was just kind of hidden because they weren't seeing it. Things weren't getting mapped correctly. Things were in different systems. So as they're getting better at integrating their HR data and Moodle Workplace, some of that stuff is being revealed, and we're working through those problems. HR compliance is much, much better now. All of the employee onboarding and offboarding is handled through Workplace. When everybody joins as a new employee, they go through the standard onboarding things. They get assigned to teams. They go through training related to their department and their job. They're using the org structure heavily. So they're leveraging all of the stuff that Moodle Workplace is intended to do. The second one there to the end, this upskilling and cross-training thing, that one's really interesting. They're combining programs and the org structure to allow people to upskill and cross-train into areas that they're not currently qualified for. This is important for the sales and support people because when the company gets audited, they need to show that a person that is supporting a particular security product or selling that product is qualified to do so. They can't just say, well, this is my job and that's what I do. They have to show proof that the person did the required training to support and sell that thing, because that thing is a critical support component of the company that's buying it and using it. If employees want to get into a certain area, they want to cross-train into a different product channel or something like that, they have the ability to go find these things, sign up for them, and if they complete the program, then a dynamic rule kicks in to put the person into that particular thing in the org structure, and then the person that manages that department gets an alert and they know that somebody just completed a training, and then they follow up to say, you know, here, how can we get you more ingrained in that particular product channel? So now, like, what's coming up next? This is where I'm really more involved with them. The data inconsistency is a continuing challenge. We're still working through that. I think it was kind of expected, but it was surprising how inconsistent their data was. So that's really a problem we're still working through. They want to leverage the workplace tools better to embed the DCU more into that enterprise. Just overall, they want Moodle Workplace to be the thing that everybody goes to every day, all day, for everything they need related to documentation, information, training, meetings, anything like that. They want to bring more consistency to their onboarding process. Before, this was kind of handled per department, so it was just a different experience depending on what department was onboarding people. Better adherence to all of the policies and procedures and information security, everything that they're doing there. They want consistency with that. They want to move the meetings into the calendar. That's been a challenge because Moodle has its calendar, but it's not like the company calendar, so they're having some challenges with that. Like I said, they want to bring all of their knowledge base and documentation stuff into Workplace, and then they're building out their full product catalog, so any partner that wants to participate with this, they can come in and have access to training information about all of the products that DigiCert creates and supports. So that's about all I have. I went in a rush. I want everybody to be able to have time for lunch. That's my digital business card there if you want to scan that, and my email address, and that's about all I have. So if anybody has any questions. Thank you.